We all have a collection of shoes. This pair will take me for a walk down the street. This pair will help me weed the garden. And my next pair will help me take me to dinner with my nice trousers on and meet some friends. I need a shoe rack because right now they're being currently stored underneath the bed in an old cupboard drawer system. So shoe rack would like to go underneath the wardrobe stand that I created last 2021. So the birth of idea is to use up these leftover bits of timber from other projects. Timber is expensive, so I like to use it up as much as possible. So these pieces here were from a picture frame that didn't quite work, so that'll become the sort of support struts for the side sections of the shoe rack. So it's important to measure up where I want to put them. I estimated I'll be able to put 4 shoes in there. Here I'm using a little magnifier to read my measurements. Now I'm making the end plates where the hand grips will go in for the shoe rack. So I need 6 of these all up because I'm going to make 3 shoe racks, and just making sure all the height is perfect. Now I'm using my little magnifier again just to make sure my 45 is accurate. I'm just going to take a little edge off of that so it's perfectly 90, and then I'll use a little slide that I've made on the other side there and zip that across and repeat process. This just makes sure everything's perfect, and I even got plans for that little scrap there. I don't want to waste anything, so we'll just make sure everything's all sized up properly. Make sure I've got enough room. So you can see I'm kind of working with the idea of a third rack in the middle. May not work once I've get everything all together. So here I'm making the grooves in the end, and this is where the support struts will go into. So I just move that along, and you can see that it just gets a little bit wider each time. So repeat process until I'm done and happy with it. And just clean and sand out the ends. Here I am with the hole saw, just measuring all that up, ready for cutting a little groove in the back, so I know where to place the drill bit for the hole saw. So here I am doing that little groove. Blade's only about 4mm, 3mm up, and just I'll use this as a guide. So you can see those little cross cuts that I've made, and this will make it easier for me to use my little magnifier to locate where the drill bit is supposed to go. And it's a bit of a tedious process, but it gives me more accuracy than what a pen mark does. And then I do this really slowly. I rubbed a little bit of machine oil on the actual hole saw cutout itself, make it easier. And then I'll get routed out those end to ends of the hole saw bits, and this is a slow process, but it just means that if I rush it, the drill bit will bite into the timber and rip holes in it where I don't want to, and fatigue my router bit and the machinery as well. So I raise the depth up little bit by little bit by little bit, so you can see the hole finally coming to shape out of it now, and repeat process for all pieces. It's a tedious job, but the reward you'll see later. So I just take off the top of the actual end pieces, just clean them up, get rid of those sharp edges. It makes it a bit fancy as well. And now I'll clean them up and round them off on the belt sander, and I'm constantly checking with my eye and my fingers to make sure that the roundedness is happening evenly, and my fingers are also checking as well. I want to get it just right. And then after here, I've got to clean up all that inside handle grip, because it's just a fraction at one end on one of them is out of alignment, just a fraction, and then the others just need a bit of a clean up as well. I use a couple of different files as well, going down in gradients, just just sort of makes it nice and neat and tidy. So when you get your hands in there, there's no chance of basically hurting your fingers if you misfire. And not like that, when you go to router with a bull nose, which is going to happen in here, because I've done all that work there, it's cleaned it up nicely, so a router much better. Any little ding in that, and basically the router will just pick it up, and you just get these holes out of nowhere, and it just looks awful. So here, a couple of sweeps both sides, just to make sure it's clean. I rub my finger over to make sure it's okay, and here I'm using the backing piece that'll run along the struts, just to router the height, and using that as a bit of a guide. It just makes life a lot easier. Nice and slow, just to clean it all up. A couple of sweeps as well. So I repeat process on all of the end pieces. Looks quite nice in the end. And all that effort now just pays off when you go to stain and varnish and polish at the end. Now I've created like a little support to go underneath, and this just raises the base off the ground just for good air circulation. Especially with shoes, you need good air circulation around them. Just stops them from air becoming trapped underneath the actual shoe rack itself. So these are all have some countersink holes already in them as well, and they're good to go in there. And I'll leave them set for a couple of hours. Now it's countersinking the boards that will go inside, and this will mean when I go to put the screws in, that means that they will sit flush or just a bit below flush, and then that way I can wood putty the holes up and those screws can be seen. It just makes it look a little bit nicer and neater. I don't like using nails so much because nails have a tendency to pull out afterwards, especially when something's being used a lot. So here I am putting the pilot holes into the end plates, and then they get screwed into place. Yeah, a bit of extra strength. Now it's just important prior to gluing is to make sure all of that hard work of the jigsaw pieces go together nicely. So you can see I've put a little rebate in that insert as well with a router just to make sure it fits nicely. So you can see already that this method of jigsaw construction, puzzle construction, just makes it easier for assembly and gluing and screwing later. So this is just perfect, and this is the opportunity to do any machining up anywhere, or just a quick tidy up with a file or a sander. Just makes a big difference. And just double checking with my fingers again, and later on I'll get ready to glue it all together. And this is the middle one I made, which I turned into just a general purpose serving tray because it was too wide to go in as a third rack. So that's fine. Like a couple of people have already asked me if I make like a particular tray with handles in it and so on and so on. So this is the prototype for that. So you can see how easy it all just fits together. And there's no time like the present to glue the whole thing together. And in a second, I'll put all the pilot holes in for the screws. Just make sure everything is all correct and in place. Takes a bit of work, but each step right now just makes it so much easier. So you can see I put some support pieces of timber underneath, so when I go to put the screws in, it doesn't flex the struts going across. And then I'll do the underside again as well, put in some pilot holes, put in some screws. It'll be all good to go then. This is basically the first stage, and then I'll putty up all the holes with some wood putty, a little bit of glue, and sand it up, make it nice and neat and tidy. It's a lot of work, but the end result is it looks nice, neat, tidy. And then hopefully pretty soon I'll have this inside the house. I'm looking forward to it. This took about 3 months to do, in between doing about 4 different other projects at the same time. So here I'm putting on the backing plate, just gluing it all up. And what I'll do is align it just to make sure it's going to be just perfect. And I'll screw in the middle one first, purely for the fact that that way it'll prevent less movement when I go to put all the others in, because it's properly aligned at the moment. That means there's less chance of things shifting down the track when I go to put all the other pilot holes in. Might be a bit tedious, but it just prevents everything from shifting while I'm currently gluing and screwing it all together. Sometimes I'll just leave this overnight so it has a chance to set, but I just didn't have the time to wait. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper workshop, so I have to work with the good weather, because my shed is pretty much on its last legs and the landlord, my father, refuses to fix it. So I have to just work with what I've got. So as you can see, getting ready to screw the last lot in. Sometimes it needs a bit of persuasion, purely for the fact that sometimes you hit a hard section in the timber and you've got to reverse the screw out and then put it all the way back in again, and it does work. So my fingers are constantly also checking how that's actually going in, how far the screw head is. So I'm just doing another check again to make sure everything is going in and going to look great. So as you can see, I don't really have any room to put in a third rack, but that's okay. 4 shoes is better than none. Looks quite neat and tidy and presentable. I take a size 9.5, so I've got a big foot. Now I missed out, I forgot to record the staining process, but I used 2-tone, and that was golden oak along with jarrah and rubbed back. Now I'm putting on the varnish. Put on 3-4 coats of varnish, and I discovered a little bit of bird poo in my work, which pissed me off a bit. The joys of working outside. I discovered it just then, and so I had to varnish around it and then get the sandpaper out and take it off, and then repeat process. Then from here, once I've covered these all with varnish, the second coat will get a rub back, get rid of any blemishes that may occur. I like using a little bit of sandpaper because you use too big, you just basically, you can't feel what's going on, you just glance over everything, whereas one hand is checking. This what happens is when it falls into the grass and I have to sand it right back and repeat process of varnishing and sanding a couple of times. Now I've done the final sand and this is cleaning it up ready for polishing. I use a little bit of methylated spirits here. And you can see how that depth in the timber has really come up. I haven't even put the polish on it yet, and wow, it's zinging. So I know it's just a shoe rack, and I've probably gone over the top, but you know what? Look at it. It just zings. And now I'm putting the polish on. You can see it zing even more. It's just like, wow. You know, good thing my cat's not alive anymore, because she'd just go, oh, look, a new place for me to lay in and be comfortable, and this is mine. You made this for me, didn't you? So yes, the Queen would love these. So again, I just do a check to make sure everything's just going to work and match in with what I've already got. And I'm pretty pleased with that. So you can see it matches in quite nicely with the stand and the wardrobe I restored. And the great thing about it is so easy. I can just move those out and I can get the vacuum cleaner out and clean up. And that's next to a half-length wardrobe that I restored back in 2021, men's wardrobe, and I made a whole new mirror stand and drawer system to go with it. So a lot of work there too. So I also restore furniture and make things functional. And yes, I live with a profound vision impairment called macrothalamus, missing most of my eyesight. So thanks for watching. Please focus on what we can do. You can find me on Facebook at Handcrafted Furniture and Picture Frames. I have some other videos up there too. I will catch you soon. Thanks.